PR firms, and this is my advice to young and not so young PR firms in the room. There's Kaizzen, there's PR Hub, there's the Good Edge, there is the Practice, to create IPs. I think IPs are cool. I think Dan Edelman's son, Richard Edelman, did it very well for the last 15, 20 years with Trust Barometer, and Avian WE does that WE does that globally, and Avian WE in India and South Asia smartly, with brands in motion, with multiple layers to it. And one of the studies they brought out, or are bringing out and launching for the first time in India now as we speak, is Tech Pulse. And Neha, who is the CEO at Avian WE, is going to share in 10 to 12 minutes that study first, and then she'll be joined by Shubhadeep Banerjee for a fireside chat based on the study she shares in a few moments from now. Thanks, Shubhadeep, for coming, and over to you, Neha.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. The rise of artificial intelligence has split the world leaders into two clear categories, leaders and laggards. Recent findings from the data infrastructure company highlighted India, Singapore, the UK, and the US as frontrunners in AI adoption and innovation, while Spain, Australia, and Germany trail behind. As AI continues to advance, it is poised to reshape the job market over the next decade. According to McKinsey, around 12 million occupational transitions are predicted by the year 2030. Therefore, the widespread integration of AI in our lives is inevitable. For businesses, the question isn't whether to adapt to AI, but how swiftly and effectively they can ride the transformation wave. I, Neha Mehrotra, Managing Director at Avian WE, I'm delighted to be here today to share the findings and strategies of how your brand can capture the AI opportunity. Welcome to Bridging the AI Expectation Gap. At WE, our research started with a question. How do we leverage AI, one of the biggest innovations in history, when AI is simultaneously changing everything around us? What we found is a crucial vision-action gap around AI, and what we mean by this. When business leaders are excited about AI potential, we are not changing behavior within the organization fully to benefit from AI. One crucial key to closing the gap is more effective communication around AI. But first, a note about our methodology. At WE Brands and Motion Survey, was conducted between December 2023 and March of 2024, and it included 2,900 executives from technology, business, and decision makers were surveyed in 8 markets. 500 executives and technology business decision makers were surveyed from India market across multiple industries and across different levels. Let's take a look at our findings. Most striking in our research is the vision-action gap amongst business leaders around AI. The executives who were surveyed were extremely bullish about how AI will help their organizations and industries. 75% of the C-suite respondents and 74% of the senior management see a strong future with AI incorporated into their operations. However, there are enough business risks and also advantages. Top benefits: increased efficiency at 49%, improved innovation and creativity at 47%, improved decision-making at 39%, new skills and training opportunities at 37%. Top risks, 2 of them: cybersecurity and existential threat of AI technology. Besides this optimism, few business leaders have plans for AI integration. 50% have not invested in employee training to upskill in AI learning and programs. 52% encourage personal experimentation with AI. 51% support creating a culture of continuous learning. 46% support offering incentives for AI upskilling. The vision-action gap requires AI-era management strategies and raises questions to consider. 2 of them, so to speak. What are we saying about AI internally, and are we backing that up with supporting programs? The next significant finding centers around how executives are addressing AI concerns. Almost all, to be precise, 93% say that they have at least some concerns around the greater adoption of AI. Top 4 concerns identified in the Indian market. Number 1, cybersecurity risks, followed by existential threat of AI to society. Third is over-reliance on AI. And last but not the least, finally, job elimination or downsizing, which is, of course, a fear that we've often heard from different executives. When asked about AI adoption impact to their organization in the next 2 to 3 years, the average from all the BDM responses were 54% of the job role functions could change, and 43% of the job role functions could be eliminated. This openness in transformation reveals a tremendous opportunity for business leaders to develop new management strategies within their organizations before AI scales up. Risks and concerns that demand immediate attention are 46% of the executives say efforts need to be made to do training. 39% said cybersecurity demands critical attention. 34% say negative impact on employee culture is a risk that should be looked into in the coming months. Yet, in another significant reality gap, when we asked executive what areas of their organization would be affected by AI, a significant 24% said none of the departments in their companies would be adversely affected by AI. This leads to more important questions to consider. Are we addressing AI concerns? And do we have answers for most open issues around AI use and adoption? We also asked why executives envision AI opportunities within their organizations. Executives expect most departments in their organization to benefit from AI technology. Product development will benefit the most, followed closely by customer service and marketing communications. Few business leaders say they prioritized actively talking about AI benefits within their organization. Although transparency with employees around AI adoption was the top way for leaders to build trust, it still was identified just by 39% of the respondents. Only 31% thought seeking out employee feedback and transparently responding to it should be a priority. 84% said sharing leadership point of view on AI is one of the most significant ways for leaders to build and retain trust with their employees. Thinking about how you're communicating around AI, these questions may be useful. Are we intentional about what we are saying internally around AI? Have we developed an internal dialogue around AI issues, usage, and adoption? With the findings in mind, now let's shift gears to what is it that we can do when we're looking at taking action. Audit sentiment to implement your organization's AI engagement strategy across target audience, internally as well as externally. Modernize your company's narrative to account for AI and how it's driving growth, change, and innovation within your organization. Leadership needs to integrate AI messages in their communication and share consistent updates to foster confidence and pair vision with action. Develop or update your company's crisis preparedness and communication plans for AI-related incidences. Reconsider messaging and incorporate potential AI-related issues and questions into spokespeople prep. In summary, embracing AI isn't just about staying competitive, it's about leading the future. By integrating AI in your strategies now, you position your business not only to survive, but to thrive in an increasingly digital world. Thank you. Okay. I now welcome Shivadeep Banerjee, Chief Digital Marketing Officer at ITC. Shivadeep has successfully started the functions of data and analytics, online reputation management, and evangelized digital media, to name a few at ITC. He has created new practices like Marketing Command Center, Customer Data Hub, and e-commerce, and has helped organizations build higher efficiencies in areas like trademark and IP management, consumer activation, and sales operation. I now look forward to a discussion with Shivadeep.
Between a technology company versus a brand manufacturing company like ITC, where we are talking about AI and its usage. I think if I go back, AI has been at play at ITC for almost a decade now. And it started in the manufacturing segment. It was never in marketing, for that matter, where productivity improvement using artificial intelligence was the primary entry point. Now, there could be multiple reasons. A lot of these machineries are all part of our factories. And all the IIT geeks are there in those factories. So a combination of those two, but that's where AI started to thrive at ITC. Our paper division was probably the pioneer in the space of AI. And that's how we at ITC started to learn more about what is AI, how do we use AI, and so on and so forth. As time progressed, we expanded, and today, as we speak, there are around 71 programs, 71, 72 programs, and I know these numbers so specifically because there are programs internally that happen to expose all of us to what is happening at different parts. Now, a paper division and a team which deals with Ashirvad Atta, they hardly talk to each other, right? But it's important for us to know what is happening at that pocket and vice versa. So there are 71 programs that are running right now, which has either AI or generative AI as part of the solutioning. And it cuts across divisions, it cuts across functions. Now, let me give you a few examples. Let's say in manufacturing itself, there are stuff around productivity improvement. Let's say a small little potato wafer on a line. There is a artificial intelligence where an image is taken constantly of the chip which moves on the conveyor belt, and all those which are black in color have been fried little more than required or broken. They're removed from that conveyor belt. So that's also a small usage of AI in order to improve the quality of the bag of chips that it is served to you all. It's also used extensively, let's say in procurement. Today, with around close to 95% accuracy, we can kind of predict the price of wheat or soya depending on the climate conditions, etc. The agribusiness division, we are enabling the farmers to use image to tell them what kind of problem is happening to the crop that they're growing, or is the soil condition requires what kind of irrigation by those images. Now, and so on and so forth. So there are lots of these usage. Now, coming to marketing specifically, closer home, a lot of content is being created today now with generative AI at play. We have a lot of analytical processes. So whether it's how do we allocate our investments given a growth ambition or a profit level ambition that we have is being driven by the AI engine. Or let's say, for example, my SKU optimization is being led by an AI engine. My supply chain team also has a bunch of AI tools with which they are optimizing their set. Last of the teams who have started to utilize is our CRM team. We reach around 3/4 of Indian households. At least one of our brands reach 3/4 of Indian households. So look at the quantum transaction that happens, leading to large quantum of interaction that happens with the CRM stroke ORM. Now, with the drop of a hat, we'll put up a message. You guys are shitty. All your biscuit packets were broken. I found a little hair in your chocolate and stuff like that. So the quantum interaction has increased. Just to give you a number, it's close to around 7.5 lakh interactions that we do with consumers, only done by the CRM stroke ORM team. Now, as the business grows, this number is going to grow. Now, how do we use AI stroke Gen AI, including conversational bots, to look at manpower? And I saw some of your points. So that's critical for us to understand where do we deploy. But in sum, this cuts across, despite being a manufacturing company, a brand company, it cuts across, whether it's B2B or a B2C part of the business, and cuts across functions.
That's very interesting. I think in a nutshell, you do tell us on how you're using AI. 71 to 72 programs is no small feat.
Yeah, but that's the filter used is what is the significant or material difference it's making to the business.
Correct.
It's not just about those 70 or 100.
Yeah.
It's finally at the end of the day, the choice is being made basis that.
Correct. Our study really brings out the fact that there is an action vision gap, and it's quite prevalent because we do have a large part of the correspondents who are senior executives who are talking about this. How important do you think it's, as communicators, it is important for us to communicate the action vision gap?
Yeah, I think irrespective of whether it's an organization or individuals, if there's a difference between what we say and what we do, there's a
there's a problem.
तो आपको मुझे कोई बोलेगा ये तो फेंक रहा है. There's lack of credence, right? In what we are doing, there's no lack of belief. There is no unison in the organization in that sense to go and hit towards a specific objective, one goal, a common set of objectives. So communication is number one in terms of what can help achieve the organizational goal. As far as Gen AI is concerned, I'll come to this specific, but because this is just one part, it's the principle which matters. I'm sure it happens in most organizations, but let's say largish vision workshops happen at a larger span. And the outcome of those vision workshop is cascaded down the order in a fashion that is comprehensible and made relevant for that cohort or segment of employees in the organization. Every year we go through our business plan. It is mandatory at ITC to ensure that we discuss and cascade this right down to the last level, the objectives of that year's business. Now, this is how it is as a principle embedded or ingrained into the organization. So when it comes, I talked about 72 programs, right? So there are programs that happen within the company in where we are supposed to showcase and highlight successes and also call out, and it's important that we also call out large failures when we have been able to, when we were adopting AI or a Gen AI, in this case, as an example, I'm talking, adopting AI or a Gen AI project. So these are a compulsory set of stuff, and they're broken into marketing, manufacturing, etc. PD, where technology is being used, or in those cases, some cases, AI and Gen AI is also being used. So to showcase those are compulsory. So that, I think, are various measures by which we are in a position to bring down the gap between what you are visualizing versus what you are supposed to action.
Right. Also, of course, there are enough benefits of using AI, and I hear some of those that you call out. But how can business leaders actually mitigate AI adoption concerns? There seem to be enough of those, but how can business leaders mitigate that?
How many in this room have touched in some form of AI? See, do you see anxiety in this room?
There's anxiety everywhere.
See anxiety, right? Have you adopted? Because please raise your hands among who have actually touched AI because you were anxious कि नहीं करे तो फंस जाएंगे. One. Do you see an anxious room? Sure. Yeah. No, that's another example. But I'm just saying that I think, like every other large technological transformation that has happened, this also would have generated a lot of anxiety. Anxiety is of two sides. One, I've heard, I've seen, I've read, I've spoken to people who've told me about AI or generative AI. I know a little bit of it. Chat GPT tak mujhe pata hai, but aage nahi pata. So that's one level of anxiety. The other level of anxiety which we were talking about is saying that it's going to take up my job.
Lots of jobs.
Right? So there are two levels or two vectors of anxiety. I think the first vector of anxiety, some of us who lost hair or a combination of lost hair and grown white, I think it's important for us to be abreast with what is all of this. And it's important for us to understand what does it mean for the organization and for the team, and how do we maneuver using AI as an augmentation or a positive addition or a great enabler into our workforce. The second, which is the anxiety of our job getting questioned, I think also as function heads, as CEOs, as divisional heads, etc., it's important for us to understand that how do we maneuver the team around it to reduce anxiety. So, for example, do we need training programs? Now, everybody will say yes, but we don't have books around Gen AI. Nobody has written it yet because we are all learning it, I think, together, right? So we need to foster a process by which we can share our learnings without that shield of saying that इसको क्या लगेगा मेरे को पता नहीं है. So how do you enable that to happen? So there are certain measures that we have taken at ITC now to ensure that we start sharing it in a fashion that we don't shy away from telling people we don't know. Right, so that's I think is very, very critical because there isn't really enough of a repository to teach us a lot, other than those Instagram videos that we keep or YouTube videos that we keep coming, keep getting served to us. So I think that's very, very critical. The second is put a, I would say a bit of money aside. While I said you were talking about 52% people will say that experiment. Encouragement of experimentation should happen with the ability saying that, okay, you have this money, please experiment. But it is important that after you have experimented, before you have experimented, put down your KPI. After you have experimented, tell us what has happened. Tell the larger world that has happened. What has happened. I think a lot of peer-to-peer learning is critical for us at this point in time where we stand on AI and Gen AI. These are, and you know, the ITC would sound to you 125-year-old organization, but the average age of this organization is now very, very young, so very low. And these guys are not really scared. In fact, they love to do more of these experiments. They want to wet their feet in that, etc., and so on and so forth. So I don't find this second vector of anxiety to be large. But we also have a strong role to play. We need to figure out that in the space, let's say in corporate communication, do I start using Gen AI to improve my copywriting? Is this demeaning or is it augmenting? Is it giving me ample opportunity to strategically think, how do I do my next storytelling differently for the same story in Tamil Nadu versus, let's say, a Bengal? How do I write it, keeping the culture code in mind? How do I look at trend and write my story better? It's just not about that copy and that great English that we put on the table, right? True. So I think it's about what do you use the tool to do versus what do you bring in as an intellect on that. And I'm not really just saying for the sake of saying because we are sitting here and you're asking me questions. These are actual things that we are practicing on a day basis so that we alleviate this entire anxiety point that you're trying to raise.
No, absolutely. I think you make some valid points on saying experiment, learn, park money aside, train people. All of these are important. Unfortunately, what's also happening right now is that there's so much of a scare to say that if you don't know it and if you don't do it, you're gone, you're doomed, right? So I think to your point, people do need to embrace it, but learn, experiment, and keep skilling, right?
And it's not very difficult. Believe me, it's not about writing codes anymore.
Yeah.
वही English है, वही लिखना है, वही देखना है क्या, what is coming out of it. It is bad, remove it, do it again. So it's far less scary than when I was in engineering college and I was told that there is a new language called, so that time it was Fortran. I don't know anybody in the room who was, and then moved into C and C++ and so on and so forth. That was scary, you know. I've never learned anything of that till class 12. And there was these things that had come up. Now nothing. There is no code, low code. That you just try to write things. Forget about those jargons. Prompt engineer banna hai. Forget about all that shit. Just keep using your English, common sense, agree, disagree, reject, accept. I think things are far more easier than to get scared. But we need to embrace. I agree with you.
We are talking about everything that can go right with AI and why we need to embrace it. Let's talk a little bit about the flip side. In terms of the flip side, do you see a loss of specialization when we're looking at AI?
Define specialization for me, Neha.
Yeah, so I think specialization in terms of, look, when with AI, you're following a particular template, a particular channel, a particular format, right? Uh, does that give you enough room for experimentation, which the human brains would do otherwise while they are on their job? Or do you think it's going to be a cookie cutter approach that's going to get followed?
Let me give some examples to try and explain, maybe if I've got the question right. So let's say in marketing, I'll give you examples from marketing, which will be comfortable for me. So let's take insight. Consumer insighting is a critical area, right? So is media is a critical area, media deployment. So I'll give you one example from inciting, one example from media. So inciting, for example, what is it that we learned from our childhood in terms of inciting? So we'll do a questionnaire, we'll do some depth interview, we'll do some quantitative questionnaire, we'll do some group discussion, we'll come back with a response, we will get into an inciting. Right? That's what we have learned. We are good at. But now what you say is social listening is critical. When we do social listening, we write less. How much do we write when we post? How many words? 10 words, 20 words. Max 75 words, right? Max. But our depth interviews used to run for how many hours, right? Couple of hours. So inciting used to be very. So what did we say? Okay, social listening se kaise hoga? So images, we post images, we post videos to express ourselves. So it became important, Neha, for us to gather the skill or buy tools or look at information set or processes by which we will be able to transcribe these videos, these images, and generate insight. So we used to start our journey by doing depth interviews or some kind of survey, but here we start our journey by looking at search trends, at consumer interactions, social conversations, etc., e-commerce trends, what are people talking about there, what is trending in terms of dishes, and so on and so forth. So is it complementary to what we were doing? Yes. Did it eat into anybody's job? No. Is this cookie cutter? No. Right? None of them were true. Let me take another example. Media. Media deployment. So forget the era of television only. Let's move on and say, okay, television hai, Facebook hai, Instagram hai, YouTube hai, Snapchat hai, blah, blah, blah. Now, and search hai, display hai. So when you deploy money, you want it to work for you based on certain objectives and certain parameters. Previously, what used to happen? We used to do all these deployment manually, check performance, take necessary actions, and so on and so forth. Now, today there are lots of tools to take up the same piece of work, but do through AI automation. That means, let's say there are 100 segments of consumers, or let's say 100 is too much, 20 segments of consumers. For each of them, there are 5 assets, so 20 into 5, 100 combinations possible. Now, these 100 combinations, some of them are performing, some of them are not performing, right? For the same brand awareness generation, and hence are people seeing the entire content through and through. Now, those which are not performing, you want to stop investing in them and redeploy the money. This was manually done. Now there's an AI tool to do it. So that resource who was manually doing this mundane stuff, यहाँ से पैसे हटाओ, यहाँ पैसे डालो, वगैरह वगैरह. Now, can I use this resource better? Is this eating into my job role? No. Is this cookie cutter? May not be, but it is repetitive. So it has taken up a repetitive job, doing it far more intelligently, freeing me of this human intellect, which can be utilized somewhere else better for a better strategic planning, etc., etc. So just 2 examples, but just to tell you that,
that makes sense.
Is it
Absolutely.
specialization? Is inciting specialization? Yes. Is media planning specialization? Yes. Do they exist still? Yes. But differently.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay.
Good. Thank you so much for all your responses to the questions. I think out and out, a very positive outlook, of course. Embrace AI, do as much as you can, experiment, but be responsible. On that note, thank you so much, Shivadeep.
Thank you, Neha and Shubhadeep. All the speakers today, the planned speakers, not the unplanned ones, will get a little merchandise from Sparkle gift card, courtesy Sparkle gift cards. I'm going to request Neha to give one of those. It has something very interesting. Shubhadeep, you can just leave it on the chair, Shubhadeep.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
This AR Hemant and Seema, you can pick up yours from Sarika later on as well. Oh.
See, it was a clean scale.
But thank you once again.